It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year?
Panarin!
Part of the past. The celebrations? Forgotten. The history?
Vegas Golden Knights!
History. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup Playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
Today, Healthier is happening at CVS Health in more ways than you've ever seen. It's wellness destinations for seniors, including select locations with Oak Street Health and CVS Pharmacy. It's doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and everyone in between, offering quality care and support virtually, in person, and on the phone. It's in-home evaluations through Signify Health and meeting mental health needs through Aetna. And those are just a few of the ways Healthier is happening. To see more, visit cvshealth.com/healthier happens together. CVS Pharmacy, Oak Street Health, CVS Specialty, Signify Health, and Aetna are part of CVS Health. Eligibility and services vary by location and individual.
There are two things that are absolutely true. Grandma loves you, and she would never say no to McDonald's. So treat yourself to a Grandma McFlurry with your order today. It's what Grandma would want. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Things change, but Deer Park Natural Spring Water is a constant you can count on, bringing you the essence of home for 150 years and counting. Sourced from carefully selected springs, Deer Park Natural Spring Water has naturally occurring electrolytes for a crisp, refreshing taste. Find Deer Park Natural Spring Water at your favorite local retailer today. After 150 years, there's only one thing left to say. Deer Park, that's still good water.
And welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag. It is Monday, May 20th, 2024, in the year of our Lord, and we are back. I am once again joined by my co-host across the country, Snail. It is Monday. Mondays are usually not great, but I don't know what it's like out in Seattle. It's a beautiful day here in Western Pennsylvania. How are we doing today?
Doing good out here in the Pacific Northwest. A beautiful day. Yeah, Mondays kind of suck. I always said if I ever owned my own business that I would never work on Mondays. But then here I am today working on a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all right. Things are good. We got a Game 7 tonight, so that makes Monday all the more better. Definitely gonna be tuning into this all Canadian series, Vancouver, Edmonton. But yeah, other than that, all smooth sailing out here in the Pacific Northwest. What about you, Robbie? How are things out in Western PA?
I've been pretty good we've had a couple dry days in a while now. So, count your blessings, I guess, while that's happening. But overall, it's been, some pretty nice weather. And like you said, we got Game 7 tonight, Wednesday. It starts, the conference finals start in the East. So before we get into these questions here, Snail, let's just talk quickly about this Florida, New York conference final. Should be a dandy. Florida fought its way past Boston. The Rangers, they looked like for a while they were going to be blowing a 3-0 lead and at least going to Game 7. Chris Kreider nets a hat trick in Game 6 to save them.
Unreal.
Yeah. This is tuning up to be a very interesting two heavyweights going toe-to-toe here. I'm very excited for this series.
Yeah, this should be an explosive series. Both of these teams known for kind of their quick strike ability. A lot of tough players on each team too. So it's going to be a battle of attrition. I have no idea who's coming out of this one. I have no who would technically be the favorite. Would it be New York?
I mean, if you're going on just like home ice advantage, I guess you would give the nod to New York. Shesterkin, you expect him to be great. Bobrovsky has been hit or miss, but that Florida team is just so deep. They just roll out line after line. I think we could be in for a 7-game absolute marathon here, an absolute bludgeoning between these two teams. I mean, as a rooting interest guy, I'm going for Florida here, so I would say in my mind they're the favorite, but it would not surprise me if either team came out of this series and advanced to the Stanley Cup final.
Totally. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be shocked at either one of them, being in the Stanley Cup final if you'd said that, at the beginning of the playoffs. But I'm hoping for Florida just because I don't want to see New York and their fans
Absolutely.
in the Stanley Cup final with a chance to win it. I think Florida's never won a cup. Maybe I'm kind of let's get some fresh blood in there in the Stanley Cup final, or maybe winning it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the West, we obviously we'll chat a little bit more about that later in the week once we figure out who the two sides are. But we know Dallas past Colorado, so they are at least in, and we'll find the other participant tonight. But for now, let's dive into these 7 questions. We have Edward and Andreas on tap. Since I am up first, Snail, I'll give you the honor of reading the first question, and I'll toss out an answer.
Question coming from our good pal from across the pond, Edward Beckham. After seeing the FSG guys at my beloved Liverpool FC today, it got me wondering, what are your overriding thoughts of them as owners?
I thought about this question a lot when I saw it come through, and I'm going to say that jury's still out. I think there's been some stuff that's been good, some stuff that has been not so good. They realized a mistake in keeping Ron Hextall and moved on to Kyle Dubas. Again, the jury's still out on Kyle Dubas as well. I'm interested to see. I wasn't really a fan of learning that they cut how many jobs after the season was over. A lot of people that that I was familiar with, especially Andy Perlman, who is the head of Penguins New Media. I hope that doesn't. The Penguins have a very good social media team. So I hope this isn't just one of those cost-cutting things that they're going to go cheap. But to me, the jury is still out on this, and I got to give them another season. If things don't turn around and if they get worse, then we can make some broader assumptions. But to me, the jury's still out until we get to see a full. I mean, we have Kyle Dubas now coming in. He had a full season. He gets a full off season. He won't be starting in June. He's starting now. Some big moves to be made this offseason. So interested to see how this plays out. So for me, the outlook on FSG as owners is still to be determined, TBD. All right. Question number 2. We're sticking with Edward here and hopping over to Snail. Unfortunately, Edward could not attend his fully paid trip to Prague. Tough. Due to illness. And he wants to know, what is the worst illness you've ever had?
That's an interesting one. Let's see. Well, first off, that's a bummer that you're not going to Prague.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're resting up and getting well and it's not too serious. But with that out of the way, the worst illness I've ever had, Robbie, it's got to be I guess COVID. I had COVID, and that was pretty. I had a hell of a time. I didn't need a was it a respirator? It wasn't what do they call that when you need to go into the hospital? I didn't need to go to the hospital. I was very sick though. I had a fever of 103. I was going through it for a few days. That was pretty bad. Recency bias, that I'd probably throw that out there. Or let's see. I think that's kind of pretty much it. I've never, fortunately, had anything too bad other than, I've had strep throat or I had, I don't know if it's technically considered an illness, but I had staph infection once.
I mean, yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah, that's no fun. I've heard that's pretty bad.
It's bad because if you don't get it early enough, it can become pretty lethal. Yeah. But fortunately, I got it checked out pretty quickly and it got solved and all is well there. So, I had shingles. Yeah, I heard
so if you had chicken pox growing up, you have I remember the commercial saying if you had chicken pox, you have the shingles virus. It's the same exact virus. So I expect that I will probably get it at some point.
Oh, it sucks.
Luckily, I have not had it, but I've known people that have had it, and I've seen what it looks like, and genuinely hope that I do never get it. I hope I get lucky and don't get it because it looks absolutely awful, and it always ends up in a place where something's rubbing against it. You can't really avoid not touching it, basically, is my takeaway. So yeah, that is like a chronic thing too. It can be, so that would be really bad too.
So yeah, what just my shingles story quickly, it was that I went to Hawaii for spring break.
Oh
And
yeah.
then it's cold up here in the Pacific Northwest still, typically around spring break in schools, at least here. And then going from spring in Seattle to brutally hot Hawaii, apparently severe or rapid temperature change can bring out shingles as well as stress. So I was going from Seattle to Hawaii, and planes really stress me out, and flying stresses me out. So that little perfect storm, I thought I had heat rash, and I got it in my armpit, in my right armpit of all places. And I just remember I was in a hot tub, and I was like, oh, I'm starting to get really uncomfortable in my armpit, little blisters popping up. I think I spent 10 days in Hawaii, and I had shingles for almost the whole time. It was miserable. But enough about me, Robbie. What about you? What's the sickest you've ever been?
The sickest I've ever been. I did have COVID in December. That's the second time I had COVID, and this was by far the worst time. I was gassed, like straight up gassed. And
you lost your taste.
I lost my taste and smell, and let me tell you, it is the weirdest sensation in the world. I do not recommend it if you can ever lose. You don't realize how valuable your senses are until one of them is gone. And that was so bad. And as someone who enjoys a wide variety of food, it became hard to eat because it's just like there's nothing here.
Where's the motivation?
Well, I mean, I would get hungry, but then you're just like, this is just so sad, man. This sucks so much. Other sicknesses, I had like a 3-year run where I had strep throat every year.
Oh God, was that like in high school or something?
It was like middle school, early high school.
Oh yeah.
Which is probably not surprising given that, I mean, if you go through high school and don't get sick, then praise be.
Did you go to public school?
I did go to public school.
Me too. I mean, public schools are just a cesspool when
it is.
Everyone gets sick. It's just, oh.
You don't have to do anything. You can avoid as much as possible, and you're going to get it from someone. Because everybody touches stuff, nobody washes their hands. It's basically just a petri dish of disgusting. The 3-year run where I had strep every year sucked. Other than that, not too much in the way of severe illness. I went into the hospital a few years ago with a panic attack that I thought was a heart attack.
Dude, that's real.
That's not a great time, and I do not recommend getting anxiety, or at least losing control of your anxiety. Let's put it that way.
That's a scare. The anxiety attack. I mean, a lot of people get misdiagnosed. They think that they're having a heart attack. They diagnose themselves, and then they figure out it's a panic attack. Crazy how your thoughts can literally manifest in that way. Super powerful stuff.
It felt like my body was on fire, and it was a terrifying feeling, and I hope that I have that under control and I don't have to go through that again. But as for like your run-of-the-mill illness, the COVID in December was not fun. The run of strep throat, especially when the strep throat hit in like June, that one really sucked. But yeah, those were my worst, I'd say. So listen, we are an all-encompassing podcast here at the Getting Snail Network. If you've been paying attention at all, we will talk about literally anything.
Yep.
Especially during the mailbag. So so Snail and I, nothing life-threatening outside of a staph infection, which Snail was lucky to grab early. That way, nothing too crazy. But Edward, we hope you're healing up, getting better, and you can make a return trip to Prague at some point, even if there's no hockey to be played. Prague seems pretty chill place to hang out.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have no issue. We know those Europeans have no problem getting over to those places. Nope. So we'll move on to another question here coming at you, Robbie, from Andreas Castle. And he says here, to pick up from Edward, what has been your worst injury? Andreas says he tore his quadriceps tendon after a misstep on the stairs in his apartment. To make things worse, his knee became infected after the operation, which led to 4 more operations. So
I read all these questions. I don't know if I've ever, in the entire history of this mailbag I've ever had like a visceral reaction to reading a question. Because when we start tearing stuff, that just seems messed up and jacked up, and that, yeah, and then infections, that is just awful. I broke my collarbone when I was almost 3. I jumped off a couch, broke a collarbone when I was almost 3. That's the only bone I broke. One time, I'm pretty sure it's the only time I had a concussion in my life. I was cleaning gutters at my grandparents' apartments complex that they owned, and the ladder I was using was way too heavy for one person. It was unwieldy, and I went to move it, and I lost control of it, and it literally fell directly on top of my head. I was like seeing stuff, like it was bad. Like I'm pretty sure I didn't get diagnosed with concussion, but I'm pretty sure I had a concussion. And that, do not get a concussion. That is, when you see these guys missing time with concussions, it is serious business. It is no joke. And that was like a mild concussion. I was good like 2 or 3 days later. Like these serious concussions, I cannot imagine being out of commission for that long because I got hit in the head. But I've never really broken anything. I thought I broke my arm ice skating once back in high school. I stepped off the ice and it was like rubber padding, but the rubber padding was soaked in melted ice and very slick. And my skate just went off and I landed literally all my body weight on my arm to brace myself. Hurt like hell, but no broken. So luckily I avoided that. That would have been the worst, but overall I've been pretty good with injuries. Now Snail's a skateboarder. So I'm a little interested to hear if Snail has anything gnarly to say with this question.
Yeah, I've had lots of injuries. You talk about concussions. I've had a few diagnosed concussions,
Okay.
and those are scary. They're really no joke. I mean, you can hit your head pretty good and not have a concussion.
Yeah.
But when you hit your head and you're feeling the effects of it days later and ringing in your ears and fog, like it's horrible. So yeah, I can resonate with that one for sure. I've gotten my concussions from skateboarding. Actually, I broke my nose when I was a kid playing baseball with it was a bat. So do you remember those things? They were like a training thing for your house. You could Velcro these like rubber
I know exactly
lines with the baseball.
Yeah.
So I used to, it's called a hit away. So I used to,
I know exactly.
I used to work one of those every day after school. And I just remember it was a hot summer day. I was getting tired working on the swing, and my aluminum bat hit the rubber lines and just immediately bounced right back to my nose. My nose is still crooked to this day. My dad actually reset it in the bathroom.
Oh.
And I have a little lump inside one of my nostrils from, I broke right where the cartilage I broke the part of the nose where like the cartilage meets the bone. So I don't know if you can tell just looking at in this, but my nose does go, it goes this way in here. So that happened, and I don't know if I got a concussion from that or not. I almost knocked myself unconscious. Bloody nose, was a mess, but I've broken my 5th metatarsal in my right foot. I've broken my left ankle. That actually all happened within 6 months of each other. I broke my foot my first day back from skating after breaking my ankle. Yeah, concussions, and aside from that, fortunately nothing else other than that.
Pretty good.
So
I do have a baseball injury that I forgot about.
What happened to you?
In high school, we were warming up for a game. I was at first base taking grounders, and for some reason, like, we had guys that would hit grounders. One would be on the third base line, the first base line, and you're supposed to get grounders from the guy on the far side. That way, you weren't getting hit. Like, well, the one coach we had was he was a little nuts, a little crazy, and he was standing not far, and he hit one. I'm at first base. I'm like, why are you? And it hit a rock, and it bounced up and hit me square in the mouth.
Oh,
and this is probably 9th grade. I had braces on.
Oh,
luckily I closed my lips got closed, but my lips went directly into the metal braces.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, it wasn't gushing, but like I could taste it like immediately. You know you know what blood tastes like.
Oh yeah, your lips were shredded apart.
Oh, they were. I can still feel the scar tissue. So that's my closest hockey type injury.
Yeah, I almost had a tooth knocked out.
Yes, and I don't know if I ended up swallowing so much blood, but I got very sick that night.
Mm.
But yeah, that one was bad too. But
That's horrible too. Yeah. At least you didn't lose a tooth. It actually would have been cool if you lost a tooth.
Yeah, but I mean, with braces, maybe not as much because that would not have been.
Your parents would be pissed.
Yes. Luckily, I did go to the dentist and everything was fine. Nothing was out of place or loose or broken.
Nothing realigned.
It was just more or less letting my lips heal that were really bad. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's been some injuries between us here. I'd be curious to know what Garrett's worst injury is.
Shin splints.
Shin splints or just I wonder what it is. We should get his answer and tweet it out what his worst injury is. Hopefully it's nothing horrible. What if we poke at him and ask him and he was like, I was in a car wreck in 99 that just destroyed me. All right, we'll move on from the injury chat.
All right. Moving back to hockey here a little bit. Andreas Castle asks, this is for Snail. What do you think is Sid's most impressive goal skill-wise? For me, it's either the one-arm backhander against the Sabres or the mid-air self-assist against the Canadiens.
Honestly, that tip he had, I think in the Colorado game, the last time they played Colorado, stands out to me. He had a 4-point night that night, and he had a redirection that I don't even think the puck was going even close to on net, and he just angled his little hamburger flipper stick he's got, and it went it was the most amazing redirect I've ever seen. It's always cool when you see them, like a Joe Pavelski-esque one in front of the net. Oh, yeah. When they change the direction of them, those are always cool. But Sid's was like, I mean, that's just like otherworldly, and he did it on purpose. He knew exactly how to angle his stick to get that. Maybe not. Of course he's trying to score, but he knew how to angle that to get it on net, and it just worked out. And that one of his many amazing goals. But the one-arm backhander against the Sabres, a sick one. That'll be on his jersey retirement highlight reel.
Yep.
The midair self-assist one, he's had a couple of those, I think. And Jake Gensel had a cool one. I think he taught Jake how to do it. Those were super cool. I'm trying to think of another one other than that. He didn't score on this, but he tried the Michigan one time, but he didn't actually try the typical Michigan. He did it like the way harder way, where the Michigan you usually have, you have your blades curve. Let me get my hand here. On the ground and you scoop it up. He had his stick turned over the other way, so he was using the backhand of his stick and almost Michiganed that way. He got it on net, but it ended up just bouncing off the goaltender's shoulder pad and didn't go in. If he had scored that, that's never been done in the NHL. I heard it was done one time in the American Hockey League by some guy that never played in the NHL, probably some skill guy. And if he had scored that would have broken the internet and would have probably been one of those like retirement highlight reel type goals. Yeah. It would have one-upped all the Michigans that have been scored by Bedard or Svechnikov or Fantilli or Forsberg or whatever. He didn't score on it though, so I guess that doesn't really count. But I always think of that, the super skill play, it's hard to get the puck on your stick like that, especially when you've got defensemen trying to hack it off your hack at your hands.
Absolutely.
So what about you, Robbie? You got any that come to mind? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so I absolutely think he's going to score Michigan at some point before he retires. I definitely expect him to get one, whether it's the normal Michigan or, like you said, on the backhand. I was actually at the game, the Canadiens game.
Oh, really?
I was at the other end of the ice. I was with my dad, and it's still like it happened so fast. You don't even quite it takes a second to process. But I was at that game. One that comes to my mind is I think it was like the same year as the Canadiens one. It was against the Devils in overtime. He ripped a puck off the crossbar. It bounced back to him, and he baseballed it into the net to win the game in overtime. Like,
oh shit, yeah.
So not only the puck needs perfect to come back perfect, and then the hand-eye coordination, moving at full speed to knock it back into the net is just an impressive 1-2 combination. So that one is one that really sticks with me as well as a completely insane goal to score. But he's had, Crosby, his entire retirement highlight reel will simply just be like insane goals he scored. It's going to be crazy.
He has no shortage of them. He's just been, He's been magnificent to watch his whole career, and even I love his breakaway goals too. He has a couple of breakaway goals from like the late, the mid to late 2000s. That dude, that guy has the hands are still there, I think, but he's not Nate McKinnon out there with the dangles. But back when he was young, he had a bag of like shootout goals, and he had, I think, a little bit the foot speed and the hands was it's so incredible to watch back then. I think I think about his rookie season, some of his first goals were awesome to watch. I love watching those on YouTube. But yeah, Sid has no shortage of awesome goals to watch out there on YouTube, and he's not done scoring them yet either, that's for sure. All right, moving on here to another question from Andreas Castle, going over to Robbie. He asks, did you see the legendary almost choke of the Canadian team at the World Championship? They entered the third period leading 6-1 against Austria, but it took them to OT to win it 7-6. I'm curious, Robbie, did you watch this live or see any of the highlights?
I saw the highlights. I didn't get a chance to watch it live.
Okay, same.
And it was, again, when I had stopped kind of following, I think it was like 5-1 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I expected. I mean, if you look at the Canadian roster, obviously stacked, very good hockey team. And then I saw this tweet from, I believe Andreas was the one that tweeted it. And he's like, yeah, did you guys see this? And you just said goals, goals, goals or something like that. So I looked it up and I'm just like, they blew a 5-goal lead in the third period. That is insane. And yeah, they still won in overtime, but just a completely... I mean, you just don't see that very often. And I was completely awestruck when I saw how this all played out. And watching the highlights, it was just like, and it wasn't even like, it was just complete defensive breakdown after defensive breakdown too. Just a complete mess for Canada on the back end. I'm just like, holy crap, what a comeback. Just insane. But yeah, they still got the win. But I mean, that's one of those games where, even in an international setting, a mismatched game like that, just crazy.
So I don't want to make excuses for Team Canada or anything like that. That's not our job to do. If they're such a juggernaut, and you wonder if they were out the night before for that.
I mean, I don't know what they were going well in the first 40 minutes. And then they just looked like a team that had no interest and had no legs in that third period, and just completely had a near meltdown for the ages.
John Tavares, I think, ended it in overtime, but I'm looking at that team and I see like Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, they'll probably button it up further along in the tournament, I'm sure. But I think Canada might be in a little bit of trouble. And this isn't me just like, I know they're not the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm not trying to throw flack at them, but goaltending wise, they are not the juggernaut that they used to be. They have no shortage of, offensive talent or whatever. Hell, they have great defensive talent still, and the veterans that they have for Team Canada. But Jordan Binnington is your number one goalie. And he's not the Binnington that took the St. Louis Blues on that run in 2019. He's kind of a sideshow. He's like the new Ron Hextall, in not the greatest way, but
in the worst temperamental way. Yes.
I was listening and I was hearing that if it's not Binnington, their number one goaltender right now is either the unproven kid from Buffalo, that what's his name? That goaltender from Buffalo. He was an NCAA guy. God, what was his name?
It's not the one with the weird. No, it wouldn't be the one with the weird name.
It's not Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. It's the one that was a high draft pick of theirs. I think he was at Michigan or something like that.
Well, if that's the case, they are in.
So it's Binnington, it's Devin Levi, that's his name.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Pittsburgh Penguins' favorite, Tristan Jarry. That is their National League goaltending roster as of right now. And I tell you what, Binnington and Jarry are hanging on for their lives right now in the NHL, at the NHL level. Both of them, we know Jarry, his history and whatnot. He didn't even play a meaningless game, the last game of the season. Which I thought was very telling. Jordan Binnington on a not good St. Louis team, not making his team much better. And Devin Levi, who's a promising prospect, but he got sent immediately down to the minors, and he didn't really play much the rest of the season, if at all. So if I'm a Canadian, I'm a little concerned about these upcoming tournaments. You hope someone comes out of the woodwork and turns into the next Carey Price, because if not, that's going to be glaring. The U.S. has a plethora of great goaltenders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right now, it's the goaltending situation in Canada is bleak, and the United States is flush with talent right now.
Flush with talent. I would say there's a couple other countries too that have decent goaltending as well. But when you got a guy like Hellebuck, even with the way his postseason kind of ended, a guy like Hellebuck in an international competition, that's a guy you want between the pipes. And like I said, if I'm Canada, I'm quaking in my boots.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
There are two things that are absolutely true. Grandma loves you, and she would never say no to McDonald's. So treat yourself to a Grandma McFlurry with your order today. It's what Grandma would want. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
Which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. USAA. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Things change, but Deer Park Natural Spring Water is a constant you can count on, bringing you the essence of home for 150 years and counting. Sourced from carefully selected springs, Deer Park Natural Spring Water has naturally occurring electrolytes for a crisp, refreshing taste. Find Deer Park Natural Spring Water at your favorite local retailer today. After 150 years, there's only one thing left to say. Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, that was it. Oh, yeah, question for Snell here from Andreas as well. And he asks, are you into horror movies? If so, what's your top three? For Andreas, it's Hellraiser, Dawn of the Dead, and The Exorcist.
All great. I love horror movies. I'm a big Halloween guy, big spooky season type of guy. What about you, Robbie? You like horror movies?
Not a horror movie guy. Never really got into it. Yeah, so for me, I don't even know if I can name three horror movies, but as for ranking what I like the best, I really don't know if I could give you a true answer there.
Yeah, so quickly, just kind of off the top of my head, again, this list could change on the day. It could change during the time of the year, even maybe during the Halloween season. I watch a lot more horror movies just to be in the spirit of Halloween and whatnot. But right now, there's a movie that came out not that long ago called Nope, and it's by, I believe his name is Jordan Peele, the guy from
I know.
Oh
yeah, I know which I know his entire film series. Yeah, I've heard very good reviews about it.
He makes great horror movies. So he has one called Nope, and it's an alien horror movie. Awesome film. I can't suggest that one enough. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, or save it for Halloween if you want. It's a movie that doesn't take place in the Halloween season. It's not one of those type of theme movies. It doesn't take place on dark and stormy night type of deal or around a campfire. It's just a good, intense, scary movie for any season. I'd go watch that. A classic one that I'll always like is the original Halloween with what's her name? It's not Melissa Joan Hart. What's her name?
No, it just it was literally just on my tip of my tongue, and now I forget. She's from Freaky Friday.
Friday. Anyways, the original Halloween is a great horror movie. It'll get you spooked. And then let's see, the third one. Hellraiser's great. I liked that movie as well. It's super like that's a gory movie. I don't really necessarily love the blood and guts in my horror movies. I like
Jamie
more
Lee
the
Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Melissa Joan Hart, Jamie Lee
I
Curtis.
knew it. Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, three piece in the name.
Yeah.
Like I was saying though, I don't like the gore as much. That doesn't really scare me. The gore. It's more of like did you ever see that movie like the Saw series or Hostel?
Oh, I remember Hostel. I never watched Hostel, but I've had enough people explain it to me. That just sounds like one of the most messed up movies ever created.
Yeah, it's just a lot of like, a lot of like cutting and hurting.
Yeah,
And like, it's just, you're like, oh dude, that makes me just like uncomfortable, not so much scared. Let's see, a third one, just to throw it out there. I'm going to go with, there's a movie called, Witch. It's got, God, I'm blanking on the actresses' names right now, but Witch came out maybe like 6-7 years ago, and it's about the Pilgrims. What do you call those? Like the pre-colonial era, when the first like
the Puritans.
The Puritans, when the Puritans were doing their thing here. This one family kind of like moves away from their village because they don't agree with the religious views or something.
Yeah,
and they encounter a witch that lives in the woods, and it is intense, scary, spooky. It's awesome. So those are 3 horror movies for you. Robbie, I'll hand it over to you. Where are you at with the scary movies?
Yeah, I'm not really a scary movie guy at all. But respect people that do watch them. It sounds like hell though.
Fair enough. Yeah. Do you have one that stands out to you that you remember watching that scared you?
Yeah, in college we watched I believe the first Paranormal Activity.
Oh.
Just a completely messed up movie. Yeah, just a freaking crazy movie. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've seen I never saw Blair Witch Project. Know what it is. Never saw Hostel.
Oh my God.
I don't think so, unless I was much younger.
What about like The Exorcism of Emily Rose?
No.
I just know I know you're just a little bit older than me, but that was one that in like middle school we were like getting together to watch, just like scare our pants off.
All right.
What about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Or...
I've seen a couple of the Saw movies.
Okay. The psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, with that, I guess we'll move on here. I think this is our last question of the mailbag, coming from Edward Beckham again here. And he says, it's interesting how the places I mentioned for vacation are bucket list for some of you Americans. People here wouldn't bat an eyelid at the mention of those places, far from the most exotic places compared to where some go, just different perspectives from our different homelands. Different perspectives indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of thinking about this as well. Like, even to just like pick up and go to like, say like Key West, or even down into the Caribbean, if we're going to like the Bahamas or the Dominican, like that's not something you just pick up and do. Like Edward felt like that especially this Prague trip, he planned it, like snapped his fingers, planned we're going. Even though he couldn't make it, just seemed like out of nowhere, he just like planned this trip. And like, that's not something that feels quite as feasible. Again, they do have a train system over there. Now, again, he's in England, so it's not necessarily as easy as hopping on a train, but you have budget airlines over there that we don't have. We're dominated by like the big 4 airline companies here, unfortunately. But yeah, like, again, I don't know I guess everybody's bucket list items would vary a little bit differently. There's one place, and when Edward was going through his locations in last week's episode, one place that I've been when I studied abroad over there that he did not mention, a little island country called Malta, in between the boot of Italy and North Africa, a very European but African influenced little island in the Mediterranean. I actually got, of all things, it was not super hot, but it was super sunny, and I actually got sun poisoning when I was there, and it
is
hurt.
That just like bad sunburn?
Very bad sunburn, but I was like nauseous, and my back was like a radiator. It was,
oh god,
yeah,
dude.
it was, and actually the tan lasted pretty much once it tanned out, it lasted the entire summer. Like you could see exactly where it was pretty much the entire summer. It was.
Well, I know if you get bad enough sunburn, it'll just scar. Like your skin will just kind of always have a tan line.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that bad, but I was hurting that night for sure. It was not a fun experience. Do not recommend. But yeah, I guess bucket list items all depend. There's people that want to do like major hiking. There's people that want to go to these famous beaches, but it just doesn't feel like in Europe you can just hop on a flight and go somewhere for a weekend. United States, again, we are limited with travel options, especially by train. Just doesn't feel like we have those outlets like they do over the pond.
I think the one thing that like our country kind of has that maybe might be appealing to, I guess I might have no idea what I'm talking about, but LA and New York are like, you know, those are like, if you want a city experience, you can go, that's a bustling city with a lot of fun stuff to do. I've never been to New York. I've been to LA plenty of times and it's fun and everything, but trying to think like the Pacific Northwest, for example, has a lot of awesome places for hiking or whatever. I just don't think that there's anywhere in the world where someone's bucket list is to ever come out. A bucket list is like if someone said their bucket list thing was to go to Banff up in Canada. Are you familiar with Banff?
Yeah, that's different.
That is like
that's on my bucket list. I'd love to go to Banff.
I'd love to go to Banff too. It's not too far from me. I've been in that province, but I never checked it out. But like Banff is a place where I could see people maybe from Europe or other countries being like, that is a beautiful place I'd like to go. I can't really think of anywhere. Where's somewhere in our country that is just like, that's a bucket list destination for people worldwide? I think maybe New York
worldwide
City?
I mean, New York City would be one. Boy, I mean, for my bucket list, I want to go to Seattle. I definitely want to make it up to Seattle, but like for like travelers outside the country,
Hawaii, because of its
Hawaii,
but it's not a typical state. Like it's not. That is literally like Pacific Island. Like
if we're talking the continuous United States, the lower 48.
Lower 48, yeah.
I don't like.
Like, is the Grand Canyon?
Guess the Grand Canyon's probably in there.
But like in Europe, if you're an outdoorsy person and you love yourself a hike, do you throw a pin on the map of the Grand Canyon when you have all that Europe has to offer? Like, I just don't know if.
I guess it depends on, like, what your experiences in Europe are. Like, if you've gone to the Alps, the Pyrenees, like, if you knock that off, maybe then the Rockies or the Grand Canyon get onto that. I mean, you have there's some extreme hikes in the United States. That you can go, especially, I mean, even up in your area, there's extreme hiking up there. I mean, you have mountain biking. Mountain biking's very big in Europe. I'm sure it's up a significant presence up in the Pacific Northwest. I know it's big in the Denver area.
You have the Appalachian Trail that goes through your state, which is actually a pretty sought out hike for a lot of people.
So like, if you're an outdoorsy hiker person, the Appalachian Trail is definitely a bucket list item, I'd say, if you can make it happen. I mean, the training that goes into that, it's obviously a weeks-long adventure. So that one, I would say, again, I'm not a huge hiker, so I can't really say about, I just know the Appalachian Trail because I'm from here, basically.
Well, I was painting a guy's house a few weeks ago, and he was a hiker, big outdoorsy guy, and his hiking backpack had an Appalachian Trail patch on it that he got from doing the Appalachian Trail when he was younger. So, I mean, he's from over here, so obviously the allure got him out of Washington.
Yeah, so that's one. Like again, like most of the big outside of McKinley, most of your major summits are like Africa or Asia. I mean, you have Pikes Peak, which is a significant. If you're into auto sports, I think you could, like, Indy would be a bucket list item.
Yeah, Indy. But in Europe, are they into auto sports?
I mean, F1's massive over there.
Oh, it is. I have no idea. So
yeah, F1, like, yeah, they definitely enjoy their auto sports over there.
How would Europeans view like our like historical monuments regarding like our government and stuff? Would they not give two shits about seeing like the Capitol or like Abe Lincoln's memorial or
maybe? I mean, I think you have to be into the history part of that. England, it might open up some wounds if they come over and like
that's what I'm thinking.
Like if you like, hey, here's a monument celebrating George Washington. BT Dub, he's the reason that we're no longer your pawn.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to like. I mean, there would be some good like over here. There's good whitewater in a lot of places if you're into that kind of adventuring. I'd say the Grand Canyon's probably high on the foreigner visitor list. I'd say city wise, I think Vegas would be up there for a lot of people.
Vegas, could the European mind conceive Vegas though? Like,
I mean, I think that's part of the allure. Like, I need to see this completely absurd, just intensely American place. Like, I need to be
intensely
there.
American. That's a good way to put it. It's intensely. It's like got that kitschy kind of vibe, that like spaghetti western.
Yes.
A lot of like naked people and drinking in the streets.
Drinking, just debauchery
gambling,
in general.
Debauchery. Entertainment. Purely
legalized debauchery. Let's put it that way.
Legalized debauchery.
Yeah.
I'm even embarrassed to say this, but does like Disney World and Disneyland? Is that a blip on the radar for Europeans?
I'd say that Europeans definitely, if they're into that, would definitely consider that a.
I don't know. I'm thinking of things that as like an American you hear growing up, like where kids in your class were like, I'm going here this summer, I'm going here over winter break. Like, do those show up on if you're in Europe? But I don't know. I guess we just don't know. We'll need feedback from our European listeners if any of those things even have shown up.
If you're a European listener, like what comes to your mind when you think of bucket list and the United States? Something you'd want to see in the United States that you consider bucket list? Because
I guess sport, like, dude, these guys some of our listeners have traveled to see Penguins games.
Yeah. I mean, if that's a bucket list item, absolutely.
Sidney Crosby is Canadian, but he's in the U.S., so he's a bucket list item for a lot of people out there. As much as, Jordan must have been. I don't know. Who's an NFL player that mattered?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, maybe bucket list guy.
Yeah.
Back when he was slinging it around with Amendola and Edelman and and Gronk. Yeah, maybe that was a bucket list thing. Because like Messi's here now in the United States playing for what is it? In
Miami.
Inter Miami.
Yep.
There are people flying from all over the world to see him play a MLS game.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all I got on that one.
That's all I got, yeah. And that is all we got for this week's mailbag. That is 7 questions. As always, pay attention on Sundays for the new mailbag tweet to go up. We'll be back later this week talking some hockey. We'll have at least one game of the Eastern Conference Final in, and we will have a preview of the Western Conference Final. We'll know both teams by the end of Monday night once Vancouver and Edmonton take care of their business. So that's all I got for this episode. Snail, do you have anything to send us away?
Nope. Game 7 tonight. By the time you guys listen to this, it would already happened. Hopefully it's a barn burner. Hopefully it's an awesome game. That's all we want. Game 7s, really. That's the best game you can get in a playoff, especially when you've got two teams like this that are just so competitive and awesome. And who are you rooting for in this quickly?
I think Vancouver.
You got to go Vancouver.
Yeah.
Old friend Tocchet, Ian Cole, Teddy Bluger, Sam Lafferty. See if he draws into the lineup tonight without Brock Besser playing. Who else do we got? Who else is on the Canucks that was...
JT Miller, the Pittsburgh connection.
The Pittsburgh connection with JT Miller.
Casey DeSmith, who's the backup.
Casey DeSmith, yes, Casey DeSmith, the backup. Old Jimmy Rutherford up in the press box, probably for sure. Going to be intently watching this game. He's probably already plotting trades for next year.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of Penguins connections out here in the Pacific Northwest. So go Vancouver. Hopefully, dude, that Brock Besser with the blood clot thing though, that's concerning, dude. That could be. Like there have been people with blood clotting issues, as we know as Penguins fans. They've been out for like 6 months.
Yeah, it sounds like Brock Besser is absolutely done for the playoffs, regardless of whether Vancouver wins or loses tonight. So he will be a status to monitor going forward here. He had a tremendous series, and it's really unfortunate. And let's hope that he is able to get back on the ice. Freddie Anderson was, but again, you think of guys like Pascal Dupuis, who once they went through this, they were able to get back a little bit, but it eventually was brought their careers to an end. So hope the best for Besser, and hopefully that he can get back on the ice next season.
But yeah, that's all I got, Robbie. We'll
right.
be back later in the week with some playoff review type stuff, maybe some obscurities to talk about. But that's all I got, man.
All right. So for Snail, I am Robbie. We will talk to you guys later this week.